One of the many things I love about video games is that every now and then a new game will release to remind me that I'm a fan of said genre. Oh shit, that's right, I'm a huge Wonderland fan! Hi-Fi Rush, a game I came to know because one day, out of nowhere, my online friends started to talk about it just like that. So I thought, why is everyone suddenly talking about it? Did it just release without any previous announcement? And yes, that's exactly what happened. Hi-Fi Rush was revealed during an Xbox conference and released on the very same day. I thought it was an indie game at first glance, but then people started to talk about the team behind it, and I was very surprised by the names that popped up. Oh wait, Shinji Mikami? The Resident Evil guy? That Shinji Mikami? Tango Gameworks? No way! The guys who made The Evil Within? I've never played The Evil Within. This looks like the total opposite of a horror game. Hold on! Bethesda? Should I be worried? Maybe I should. I've never played a Bethesda game. Still, I thought the game looked very appealing, you know? I was hoping to give it a chance someday in the future. Then, a week later, my friend James gave me the game on Steam, so I thought, fuck it! I need a rest from Fire Emblem, time to give this a shot! So, what even is Hi-Fi Rush? A reminder why I love character action games. You know what I'm talking about, right? Bayonetta, The Wonderful 101, Astral Chain, Devil May Cry, especially Devil May Cry. Hi-Fi Rush is a high adrenaline action game heavily reliant on combos and finishing enemies in the most stylish way possible. What sets this game apart from the competition and makes it so unique is that it's rhythm based. Everything from the main character Chai, the enemies, the environments and the music all move to the same beat. Kinda like Crypt of the Necrodancer and Cadence of Hyrule, but it's not as strict as those games though. In Hi-Fi Rush, you can move freely and attack outside of the beat, but timing your inputs properly to the music earns you more effective techniques, a better score, and lets you hit harder. You have strong and weak attacks that you can combine however you like, some aerial combat, a dash maneuver, a parry technique, and you can even call your friends so they can help you in battle, and all of them bring something unique on top of helping you extend your combos, granting you even more points. Not to mention, the combat continues to expand the more you progress, opening new ways to take down enemies. Hi-Fi Rush is one of those games that is easy to understand but difficult to master. The things you're asked to take into account can become overwhelming. When to parry or dodge, which character is effective against which enemy, how to keep your combos varied, potential environmental hazards, and all of that on top of having to keep a rhythm in your mind. It's not as overwhelming as Astral Chain, but it's a learning curve that takes some practice to get adapted to. But once you do, you'll find a combat system that is so unique and immensely satisfying to play. I like it so much because you can't get away by just button mashing. There's a lot of thinking and coordination involved, which makes getting those S ranks feel like you truly earned them. Most of the time. Okay, here's my complaints about the combat system. The enemy variety is great. It's interesting because most enemies in the game are robots, but I like that the grand majority of them are so distinguishable at sight and all of them are so unique. It's so cool how you can call in your friends and their different effects can turn the tides in battle. So what's the problem? Some enemies are so fucking annoying to deal with. So, all your partners have a certain gimmick that helps against an enemy. Some have blue barriers, Peppermint can take them out. Sea shields, that's when Macaron comes in to punch them. Some set the station fire, that's when Corsica shows up to put them out. Honestly, the Peppermint and Corsica enemies aren't so bad because they can still be taken out normally. But the Macaron enemies are so annoying because their sea shields deflect all attacks. Macaron can punch through them to expose them, but here's the thing. They usually require you to summon Macaron twice, but using your teammates triggers a cooldown sequence before you can use them again. Since Macaron is the biggest of the group, he takes considerably longer to be available again. So with some enemies, it's waiting time until Macaron does his job and then you can get to the good part. I know there's special skills and chips that make this part easier, but here's another thing I found annoying about the game. Sometimes there's just too much happening on screen. No, scratch that. Sometimes there's too much happening on screen and outside of the screen. Some battles just throw waves of enemies against you, which can cause different problems. The auto-aim can go for someone you don't want to, which can lead you to waste a partner use, grapple onto something you didn't mean to, or parry the wrong enemy. But for me, the worst case scenario is that there's tons of enemies that can strike you from blind spots. I do appreciate that attacks can be easily predicted if you pay attention, but many enemies outside of your field of vision are miles harder to predict. Long-range enemies are a bit easier to spot, but those who are very fast, like that tire-like robot or the eagle one, are a nightmare to battle, especially when you can see them. You need to have godlike reflexes or just parry to the beat all the time to avoid damage, and that's still not guaranteed to work. It sucks because that can break the flow of the game at times. Make no mistake, the combat of Hi-Fi Rush is still fantastic, but this is an issue that can happen, and when it does sour the experience a bit. It also didn't help that I played this in hard mode, so yeah, I died quite a number of times. Outside of combat, Hi-Fi Rush has some small locales to explore like in other games of the genre, usually offering small challenges and secrets to find. While the combat is, of course, the main spectacle, I honestly enjoyed these sections, because they never overstayed their welcome and usually rewarded my curiosity with helpful upgrades. The platforming can be a bit janky at times, and not gonna lie, at times I will fail simple jumps just because my instincts were trying to keep the rhythm going, even though rhythm is not necessary while making jumps. That was my fault, I'm aware. But credit where it's due, when it comes to character action games, Hi-Fi Rush's platforming is honestly pretty good, especially compared to something like Devil May Cry. One thing I especially appreciate is how the game doesn't have many gimmicky sections with a completely different gameplay style. I love character action games, but many of them are faulty of having that one section. A part where the gameplay radically changes just for the sake of being different, and those can be super hit or miss. Hi-Fi Rush occasionally throws a curveball, but I found them great this time because set challenges were usually rhythm-based, so they never felt out of place. The story of Hi-Fi Rush is nothing special, but I think it gets the work done. It doesn't pretend to be more than it is. If I had to compare it to something, it kinda reminded me to a 2000s animated movie. No, in fact, I can't tell what movie specifically. Robots. It's probably the setting and the anti-corporation plot, but you know what? Just like that movie, it's a very fun and entertaining ride. My favorite part of it had to be the characters, and there's something the game does well. The main part is just so good, so likable. I love how diverse it is. Like, yeah, they may be a bit cliche, but it's so cool how they all feel like a real team both in the story and as a gameplay mechanic. It's hard not to get attached to them. The main antagonists are your typical Saturday morning cartoon villains, but they're so entertaining it doesn't matter. Again, the story is nothing you haven't seen before, but it's still so fun. There were times where I couldn't help but get excited simply because the events were so cool. There is, however, one thing that can potentially be an insignificant thing or a cringe fest depending on who you are. And that's the humor, which sometimes can feel either outdated or just MCU tier. You know what I'm talking about, right? It may not be that big of a deal for some people, but I think that's something worth considering, cause these characters love to talk, and the game will take any chance it can get to try to make you laugh. Results may vary. I personally like the humor, like, yeah, there were some jokes that made me roll my eyes, but there were also moments that just straight up cracked me up, like this character Cinnamon, god. Every time he opened his mouth, it was guaranteed to make me laugh, and it also helped his voice actor was so good. You can tell the guy was having so much fun with the character. Oh yeah, that's another thing I have to clarify. I played this game with a Latin American dub, but with English subtitles. An odd combination, but it helps since I streamed the game on Twitch, and I wanted to point out, I found the dialogue in Spanish better, since I could compare both languages on the spot. I felt the Spanish dialogue was more restrained but still very fun. The English dialogue wasn't bad by any means, but just by reading it, at times it could feel like...
How do you do, fellow kids?
So if there's a Latino out there watching this video, check out the Latin American dub. It's really damn good. You know what else is really damn good? The presentation of the game! The cel-shaded graphics are wonderful to look at. It really brings you back to a PS2 era game that still looks fantastic to this day. Some areas might be a bit samey, there's honestly a lot of factory theme levels, but I didn't find it that cumbersome because there's so much style and personality in the art style, character expressions, and the combat. And combined with the amazing sound direction of this game, it is immensely satisfying to send enemies flying, all while keeping the momentum going. Fighting bosses is always a spectacle because they're so stimulating and challenging. There's so much attention to even the most insignificant details. For example, there's variations in the dialogue depending on what you do, or you can see background elements move to the rhythm of the music. And speaking of, this is perhaps the thing I care the least for, but the soundtrack of Hi-Fi Rush is good, but that's it. I know it's ironic, but I feel the songs are good because they achieve what they set out to do. I find it so cool that every division of the company has its own style of music, and they all do a great job to complement the action that is happening on screen. But I can think of many tracks that really stuck with me. There's even licensed music from real bands in the game, but I'll be honest, I also didn't think much of them. That's probably because I don't know these groups or I only identify them by name. 9 Inch Nails? Yeah, I know them. They're mentioned in the Cold Steel the Hedgehog image. Again, the soundtrack is good, the variety is great, and how it enhances the action is wonderful. But I honestly think that other character action games had more memorable music. Hi-Fi Rush is a very curious case. It may not be the deepest of the genre out there, some humor may be a bit outdated, and the story is nothing mind-blowing or original. But it's a game I found so hard to not enjoy because it has so much heart put into it. You can tell how much the devs wanted to make a game that anyone could enjoy. And yeah, no shit, the accessibility options here are insane. I think anyone can find a good time with this game, but more than that, Hi-Fi Rush is simply a very solid experience that sets itself apart from the competition. It starts great, and it only gets better as it progresses, minus a few bumps in the road. But my experience overall was so good that I didn't mind going back to it right away to unlock some post-game content and even enjoy its Bloody Palace mode clearly inspired by Devil May Cry. It reminded me why I love character action games as much as I do. If there's ever a sequel, and I really hope there is, there's a few things I would love them to make. Give us more varied levels to explore. Again, I didn't mind much that most of the game is a factory, but it would be cool to have different areas to explore. And besides that, I hope that they expand on the combat, with more combos, perhaps new weapons, and even more variety. But above all, I really hope we get more playable characters. The main cast is so likable, and you can also see the potential in full-fledged movesets. Hi-Fi Rush already got a winning formula here, but it's one that also has a ton of room to grow. God, I think the last time I reviewed a character action game was Astral Chain like 3-4 years ago. Damn, where does the time go? But you know, Hi-Fi Rush was a good reminder as to why this genre is one that, for me, just never misses. I really hope this game continues to gather more attention because it really deserves it. And you know, maybe you should give it a shot too. Even if you're not fully familiar with the genre, you might be surprised at how exciting it can be. And if you do, then let me know in the comments what you think about it. And of course, thank you so much for your time, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you can support the channel, you know, by the usual means, that will mean so much to me. Have a wonderful day, and take care! I'll see you next time!